Ladies and gentlemen, I want to speak to you today about a truth that might not always feel comfortable, but it's one that holds power and promise for every believer. When God is about to give you something big, you will see this. When we look at the stories in Scripture, we can see a consistent pattern. Before any breakthrough, there was a season of struggle, whether it was the Israelites wandering in the desert or David hiding from Saul. There was always a moment where the promise seemed distant, the pain was real, and the outcome uncertain. This principle isn't just a historical fact, it's a divine rhythm. Think about it. Struggle is often the incubator for your breakthrough. It's easy to get discouraged when you're in the middle of it, but don't forget that struggle is part of the preparation process. You see, we want the blessings, the promotion, the growth, and the favor, but often we don't realize that we need the struggle to shape us for what's coming next. The struggle refines us. It stretches our faith. Faith that doesn't have to fight through difficulty isn't as strong as the faith that grows when faced with a challenge. It's in the struggle that you learn to trust God in deeper ways. It's where you begin to rely on Him more than yourself. In the middle of your hardship, God is asking you to move past your comfort zone and to cling to Him even when you don't understand what's happening. Take a moment and think about the last time you faced something difficult. In that moment, it probably felt like the worst thing possible. Yet looking back, you might realize that without that struggle, you wouldn't have grown the way you did. Without that hardship, your character wouldn't have developed. That struggle wasn't sent to break you. It was sent to prepare you for the blessing you were about to receive. Struggle builds resilience. The longer the struggle, the greater the breakthrough. The pain of the process isn't meant to be permanent, but it is necessary for the next phase of your journey. When you face adversity, you begin to build muscle, spiritually and mentally. You learn perseverance. And without perseverance, how could you endure the victory that's coming? Struggle builds resilience. The longer the struggle, the greater the breakthrough. The pain of the process isn't meant to be permanent, but it is necessary for the next phase of your journey. When you face adversity, you begin to build muscle, spiritually and mentally. You learn perseverance. And without perseverance, how could you endure the victory that's coming? In the struggle, God is teaching you how to stand firm. He's testing your endurance. And endurance is what helps you maintain your position when the breakthrough arrives. Without the season of struggle, the breakthrough might overwhelm you. You might not have the spiritual or emotional maturity to handle what God is about to give you. Struggle gives you the strength to carry the weight of your blessing. And what's more, struggle produces a deeper intimacy with God. When you're at your lowest, when your strength is spent, that's when you discover a new depth of God's presence. It's easy to think you don't need God when things are going well, but in struggle, you learn that His grace is sufficient. You learn that His strength is made perfect in your weakness. The struggle is where the foundation is laid for your breakthrough. It's uncomfortable. It feels like you're being stretched beyond your limits. But that's exactly what's happening. God is preparing you for the new thing. Without the testing, there would be no testimony. Without the trial, there would be no triumph. When God is about to give you something big, one of the first signs you will notice is a sudden increase in opposition. It's almost like the moment you start moving in the direction of your purpose, the enemy intensifies his efforts to stop you. It feels as though everything and everyone that could possibly stand in your way is doing so all at once. But here's the truth. Opposition is not a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's a sign that you're doing something right. Think about it for a moment. When you're stuck in a comfort zone, when you're just going through the motions, there's not much to oppose. But the moment you step out in faith, when you decide to take a risk and pursue God's calling, that's when the enemy takes notice. That's when he starts working overtime to try to discourage you, distract you, and derail you from your purpose. The increase in opposition is an indicator that you're a threat. The enemy doesn't waste his energy on people who aren't making progress, people who aren't moving in the direction of their destiny. But when you step into something bigger than yourself, something that has eternal significance, you can expect opposition to show up. The more significant the purpose, the greater the opposition. When you face increased opposition, you can take it as a sign that God is about to do something amazing in your life. You are stepping into territory that the enemy doesn't want you to possess. He's going to fight you because he knows what's on the other side of your obedience. He knows that breakthrough is coming, and he wants to stop it before it can even begin. We see this pattern all throughout Scripture. Look at the story of Nehemiah, for example. Nehemiah was sent to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem, and the moment he started the work, opposition rose up in full force. There were mockers, critics, and even enemies who tried to sabotage his efforts. But Nehemiah didn't give up. In fact, he pressed forward despite the attacks, knowing that the opposition was a sign that God was with him in the work. Another form of opposition is fear. When you start to move towards something bigger than yourself, fear has a way of rising up and trying to hold you back. It whispers in your ear, telling you all the reasons why it won't work, why you're not capable, why you'll fail. Fear can be paralyzing, but what you need to remember is that fear is just a sign that you're on the edge of something significant. God didn't give you a spirit of fear, but a spirit of power, love, and sound mind. When fear shows up, it means you're doing something that's shaking the enemy's kingdom. And that's a reason to press forward, not retreat. There's also the form of delays that may come as opposition. Things you've prayed for and planned for seem to be taking longer than you expected. It feels like every door is closed, every opportunity is delayed. And in those moments, it's easy to question whether or not you've heard God correctly. But remember this, delay does not mean denial. God is working behind the scenes. And the delay could be preparing you, strengthening you, or lining up the perfect timing for the breakthrough to come. In the midst of opposition, God is often doing his greatest work in you. He's refining your patience. He's deepening your trust. He's teaching you how to endure with grace. Opposition is what strengthens your resolve, what teaches you perseverance, and what proves to you that the call on your life is not just a passing thought, it's a divine purpose. The greater the opposition, the greater the victory. So when the opposition increases, don't let it discourage you, let it fuel you. It's a sign that your breakthrough is closer than you think. You're on the right track. Keep pushing forward, because what's on the other side of that opposition is a breakthrough that will make the battle worthwhile. When God is about to give you something big, one of the most distinct feelings you might experience is an unsettled spirit. It's that inner sense that something is changing, but you can't yet put your finger on what's coming. You don't feel comfortable where you are, and you sense that there's more ahead, but it's unclear, undefined, and sometimes even a little frightening. It's like standing on the edge of a cliff, knowing you're about to jump, but not knowing what the landing will look like. This feeling of unrest isn't something to be afraid of. In fact, it's often a sign that God is about to move in your life. God doesn't allow us to settle in a place of complacency when he's preparing us for something greater. When you're on the brink of something big, God will stir up your spirit, making you feel uncomfortable in your current season. It's as if he's saying, I'm not done with you here, but I'm preparing you for what's next. An unsettled spirit can manifest in several ways. First, it might show up as a restless feeling. You feel like you're in between two places, one foot still in your past and the other just beginning to step into the future. You know you're not where you used to be, but you haven't fully stepped into the next chapter of your life yet. You're caught in that limbo, unsure, but with a deep sense that something is about to change. This tension is not easy, but it's often necessary for growth. God is pulling you out of your comfort zone to stretch your faith and expand your horizons. Another way this unsettled spirit shows up is through a desire for change, an internal craving that something has to be different, that the current state of things is not where you're supposed to stay. When God is preparing you for something bigger, you may begin to feel dissatisfaction with your current circumstances. It's not that everything is bad or that you're ungrateful for what you have, but there's a growing desire for more, a deeper calling, a higher purpose that you can't ignore. This desire isn't a sign of discontentment, but rather a prompting from God to seek the new season he's preparing for you. You might also experience a sense of restlessness in your relationships. You may notice that certain connections in your life no longer bring the same peace or joy they once did. You might feel disconnected from people who used to be close, or like you're being pulled away from certain environments that used to feel comfortable. This disconnection can be unsettling, but it's part of the process. As God moves you into a new season, He often removes people, places, and situations that no longer align with the purpose He's calling you to. It's not necessarily about cutting people off, but about recognizing that your next step requires a different type of alignment. This period of transition might leave you feeling alone or uncertain, but it's part of God's way of redirecting your path. An unsettled spirit can also feel like an internal tug of war between faith and fear. You know God has called you to something greater, but your mind and heart are at odds with the idea. Fear creeps in, telling you that you're not ready, that you'll fail, that it's too big, too much. But at the same time, you feel the pull of destiny, the knowing deep within that you're being prepared for something greater than you could have imagined. This battle within can create tension, and that tension often manifests as restlessness. You may feel like you're being pulled in different directions, but this is often the moment when God is refining your faith, teaching you how to trust Him even when you don't have all the answers. It's important to recognize that this unsettled feeling is often a precursor to transformation. Change is coming, but it requires a shift in your mindset and spirit before it can take place externally. God doesn't just give you something big without first changing your heart, your thoughts, and your perspectives. That unrest in your spirit is a sign that you're in the process of being redefined, remade, and reshaped for the next step of your journey. It's the discomfort of growth, the stretching that happens before the breakthrough. This restlessness is not meant to break you. It's meant to prepare you for a higher calling. You may not understand it fully now, but you can trust that God is working behind the scenes, and this unsettled feeling is simply the growing pains of a new season on the horizon. It's God's way of getting your attention, of pushing you to the edge of what's familiar and preparing you for what lies ahead. He's teaching you to trust Him even when the way is unclear, and to step out in faith even when your spirit feels restless. God is stirring things within you that are impossible to ignore. The discomfort, the tension, the longing for something more, they are all signs that you are being prepared for a divine shift, a new season, a breakthrough that you've never experienced before. It's not easy, but it's necessary, and it's a sure sign that something bigger is coming. When God is about to give you something big, one of the most challenging signs you may encounter is a season of isolation or loneliness. It's in this place of solitude that many people begin to question their worth, their calling, or whether they are truly on the right path. At first glance, loneliness may seem like a negative experience, but in the hands of God, it becomes a profound season of preparation and growth. God often calls us to a place of isolation before He promotes us to a new level. This can feel like a personal wilderness, where the relationships and communities that once brought you comfort are no longer present, or where you feel a distance from those around you. When you're isolated, you're forced to rely on God in a deeper way because there's no one else around to help carry the burden, offer advice, or give you a sense of security. This is a place where only God's presence can truly satisfy, and it's in this space that your relationship with Him deepens and your trust in His plan for you strengthens. You might find that God pulls you away from people during this time. Whether it's intentional or circumstantial, you feel disconnected from the people who once seemed central to your life. Friends, family, coworkers, those you thought you could count on, suddenly seem distant or even unavailable. You might be surrounded by people, but still feel utterly alone. This isolation is not punishment, but preparation. It's often in these moments that God is teaching you to find your identity in Him rather than in the approval or presence of others. In this isolated place, you learn how to stand alone in your calling. It's easy to move with the crowd when everything feels secure, but when God is preparing you for something big, He will sometimes remove you from the noise and busyness of life so that you can hear His voice clearly. He's building a foundation of trust and reliance on Him. In isolation, you are no longer influenced by the opinions or voices of others, but are compelled to lean solely on God for direction and strength. Loneliness can also surface as a form of self-reflection. When God isolates you, He often wants you to reflect on the past season, reevaluate where you've been, and prepare for the new season ahead. This introspection can be uncomfortable, especially if you realize that there are things you need to let go of, habits you need to break, or attitudes you need to change. Loneliness gives space for God to confront parts of your character that need refinement. He works on your heart, your mindset, and your spirit so that you can be ready to handle the magnitude of what's coming next. During times of isolation, you may also be tested in your faith. Without the support system of familiar faces and voices, you'll have moments where it feels like you're walking through life alone. The prayers you once prayed with others now seem silent, and you may find yourself questioning if you're even hearing from God. But it's precisely in this silence that God can build the foundation of your personal faith. You're learning to walk with Him even when you don't have immediate encouragement or confirmation from others. In this space, God is showing you that His presence is enough. You don't need the approval or presence of others to carry out His plan for your life. His voice, His word, and His presence are all that matter. You may experience moments where God allows you to feel deeply misunderstood during this time. People around you might not understand the calling or the change you're going through. They might think you're crazy for stepping out in faith, or they might question your choices and the direction you're heading. This sense of being misunderstood can feel deeply isolating, but it's in this space where God is strengthening your resolve. He's teaching you that the opinions of others don't define your purpose. Your identity is anchored in His truth alone, and He's equipping you to stand firm in the face of criticism, doubt, or misunderstanding. There's also a tendency for loneliness to stir up feelings of inadequacy. You might start to question if you're truly equipped for what God has called you to. The isolation forces you to confront your fears, your doubts, and your insecurities head on. Without the voices of encouragement around you, you might start to believe that you're not enough or that your calling is too big for you. And this is where God does some of His most profound work. He shows you that your worth and ability come from Him alone, not from your own strength or the validation of others. In isolation, God is reminding you that you are enough because He is enough. You don't need to have everything figured out because He has already prepared the way. God uses these seasons of loneliness to teach you to embrace His presence in a way that you couldn't experience in the noise of everyday life. He desires to be your comforter, your strength, and your joy in the silence, not just when you're surrounded by people. These moments of loneliness are invitations to go deeper into His heart, to learn how to depend solely on Him, and to find your identity and peace in His presence. It's in isolation that God prepares you for the big thing He is about to give you. He is strengthening you to carry the weight of your calling. And although loneliness might feel painful and difficult, it's also where transformation happens. God is reshaping you, refining you, and setting you up for the blessing that's coming. The loneliness isn't a sign of abandonment, but a sign of divine preparation. It's in these moments that you are being prepared for what God is about to do in your life, something far greater than you can currently imagine. When God is about to give you something big, one of the most challenging experiences you might face is the tension between uncertainty and faith. It's a place where the road ahead seems unclear, where you don't know what tomorrow holds, and where every step forward feels like walking on unsteady ground. Uncertainty has a way of shaking your confidence, causing doubt to rise in your heart. Yet in the midst of this uncertainty, faith becomes the anchor that keeps you grounded in the midst of the storm. Uncertainty is uncomfortable. It's the feeling of not having all the answers, of not knowing how the pieces of your life will come together. It's the season where God asks you to step out when the path isn't lit up, where you can't see the destination clearly and where the future feels like a fog. But faith is the opposite of certainty. Faith is believing in what you can't see, trusting in what you don't understand, and continuing to move forward even when your circumstances seem unstable. God often calls us into places of uncertainty when He's about to do something extraordinary. He calls us to trust him in the unknown because it's in these moments that our faith is truly tested. If everything were certain, if we could see every step and every detail of our journey, faith wouldn't be necessary. But uncertainty stretches our faith, forces us to rely on God, and teaches us that he is the one who holds the future, not our circumstances. In times of uncertainty, faith becomes our declaration that God is good and trustworthy, even when we don't have all the answers. We live in a world that demands certainty and control, but God often works in ways that challenge our need for both. Faith in the midst of uncertainty means letting go of control and allowing God to move in his perfect timing. It's trusting that even though you don't understand the situation, you believe that God is good and will lead you where you need to go. Uncertainty often makes us question our direction. When God is about to give you something big, you may start to question whether you heard him correctly. Did he really call you to this? Is this the right decision? Should you take that next step? It's easy to feel paralyzed by the unknown, overwhelmed by the possibility of failure or the fear of making the wrong choice. But uncertainty is not a sign of failure. It's a sign that you're walking in faith. The absence of clarity doesn't mean you've missed God. It means you're walking in the space where faith thrives. In the midst of uncertainty, God will often ask you to trust him with the little things first. He may not reveal the entire picture all at once because he knows that if you saw everything, you might not have the courage to take the first step. He wants you to trust him with the next step, the step that's just in front of you, even if you don't see where it leads. Faith is obedience in the dark, trusting that God will illuminate the way when it's time. Uncertainty can also stir up a deep sense of fear that you'll fail, fear that you'll make the wrong choice, fear that you're not equipped for what lies ahead. The unknown brings insecurity, and it's easy to feel like you're not enough or that you're not ready for the big thing that God is calling you to. But this is where faith steps in. Faith acknowledges the fear, but chooses to move forward anyway. Faith doesn't deny the existence of fear. It chooses to focus on God's promises instead. Faith doesn't ignore the uncertainty. It embraces it, knowing that God has everything under control. The journey of uncertainty isn't about having all the answers up front. It's about learning to walk in trust, even when the answers aren't clear. When you find yourself in a place of uncertainty, it's not a sign that God has abandoned you. It's often a sign that he is calling you to a deeper trust. Uncertainty forces you to lean into his presence, to seek his voice more fervently, and to believe that he will lead you when you don't know the way. What's more, uncertainty is a breeding ground for growth. It's in the uncertain moments that we are pushed beyond our comfort zone, stretched in our faith, and refined in our understanding of who God is. If we always lived with certainty, we would never experience the full depth of God's provision and power. It's in the uncertainty that we come face to face with the reality of God's faithfulness. It's in those moments that we see his provision in ways we never would have experienced if we had everything mapped out from the beginning. As you walk through uncertainty, remember that God isn't surprised by it. He already knows the outcome. He already knows the next step. You're not waiting on God to figure things out. He's waiting for you to walk in faith. And even though the way may seem unclear, God has promised to guide you. He is the lamp unto your feet, shining just enough light for you to take the next step. He will provide clarity when the time is right. But until then, he calls you to trust him with the unknown. Faith in uncertainty isn't about being fearless. It's about acknowledging that fear exists and still choosing to trust in God's promises. It's about walking even when you can't see the full picture, knowing that God's plan for you is good, even if the road is unclear. Uncertainty is simply the canvas where faith is painted. It's the place where God asks you to rely on him more than on your own understanding. And in that place, your faith grows stronger, deeper, and more steadfast.